Good morning, everybody. I have another Throwback Thursday video to share this morning. Today, I'm going to be looking at another part of our collection at the Thistle Cottage Archives that we find to be incredibly important and helpful. This morning's video is on our newspaper collection. If you've done any sort of historical research in the past, then you probably already understand just how significant the news can be for researchers. Newspapers are a record of our communities. While personal documents, such as wills, birth and death records, and the like, are usually more specific when you're looking into a certain person and are more often used for genealogy purposes, a newspaper can provide additional information in the form of feature stories, obituaries, or other mentions of the person in question. News stories can also provide insight into what that person's life would have been like. If you want to know what was happening in their life at a given time, check the newspaper to see what events the community was experiencing. And of course, newspapers are a great resource for more general historical research or for information about an event rather than a specific person. Contemporary newspapers, those written at the time of a historical event, have long been considered a primary source of information since they feature a description of an event as it was happening. Those events were often witnessed, if not by the reporter themselves, then by the people they spoke to when preparing the article. But even flashback-style news stories, which are written later to review a previous event for informational purposes or as additional context for a current story, have historical value, although those would typically be considered secondary sources. Reputable news organizations are typically considered a trustworthy place to get information of that nature. And at Thistle Cottage, we certainly understand how important it is for researchers to have access to that information, so we have a very robust collection of newspapers in our archives. In fact, our collection dates back as far as 1883, and it goes up to present day. Most of our newspaper collection is on microfilm, which for many years was the preferred way of preserving newspapers. Newsprint is, by nature, delicate and prone to damage with time, so it just doesn't last well, even when stored carefully. Museums and archives typically have newspapers scanned into a different format that can be preserved better to ensure access decades or even centuries in the future, and microfilm is one way we have traditionally done that. We have several file drawers of microfilm reels with local newspapers on them. We have recently begun to supplement our microfilm collection with digital issues that not only take up less space, they can also be backed up more easily and copies saved in multiple locations so that, even in the case of a disaster, we will not lose what we have. And, even better, the digital papers we have begun adding to our collection are searchable. We're very happy to have all the microfilm that's in our collection, but one issue with it is that it is neither searchable or indexed. We're not able to type in a word or phrase and automatically find all references. Using microfilm is more like using the physical newspaper. You have to manually look at each page of every paper to try to find what you're looking for. For that reason, with our microfilmed newspapers, it's necessary to have either nearly unlimited time or at least a close approximation of the time period a story might have run, or incredible luck, in order to find what you're looking for. Even in our small county, with 2 local papers, we have an average of 8 newspaper issues every single month, each of which consists of several pages. That's a lot of text to look at if you don't know when an article or photo was published. Our digital newspapers, however, are searchable. For example, I can simply type Muhlenberg County Public Libraries into the search box on our digital newspaper file and see every time the library was mentioned in one of the papers that's included. Or I can type my own name and find every time I was mentioned, whether it be in a photo caption, a story about the library, an obituary, etc. Our digital collection currently consists of Leader News issues from 2007 to the present, plus a few other copies, and we are adding to that collection whenever possible. In fact, thanks to the generosity of some of our supporters, we have recently ordered a machine that will not only serve as a microfilm viewer, a newer and easier to use model than the one we have currently, but will also work as a scanner for those films. We believe we're going to be able to convert the microfilm we have into that searchable digital format. We couldn't be more excited about making it even easier to access the information included in our newspapers. We don't have the new machine yet, and we know that it will take a fair amount of time to get everything converted, but we're looking forward to receiving it and getting started. Plus, it will still work as a viewer even before everything is digitized, so it'll be an immediate improvement, and we're so happy to be able to add that to our archives. We do also have a limited collection of physical newspapers. If we don't already have a newspaper in another format, such as microfilm or digital, we will attempt to locate and store a paper copy just so that information remains available. Plus, we understand that sometimes it's nice to have the physical paper in front of you whenever possible, instead of just viewing it on a screen. We'll also keep paper copies of certain events that are especially significant, such as the 9/11 World Trade Center attack or the COVID-19 pandemic. And our family and community files sometimes include relevant clippings from newspapers, so it's easier to locate that information when it's needed. In addition to those, we also have a collection of bound Leader News issues. Those are paper copies of the Leader News that have been bound into a large book for better storage and protection. Each book typically contains a year's worth of newspapers. We don't have every newspaper ever published in the county, unfortunately, or even every issue of the newspapers that are included in our collection. However, we do have some issues of those early Muhlenberg County papers. As I mentioned, we have an issue of the Muhlenberg Echo from October 18, 1883, as well as select issues of other papers, the Muhlenberger, the Greenville Banner, the Greenville Record, and the Central City Argus, from the late 1800s and early 1900s. Our collection becomes more complete once you get into the 1930s. The Central City Messenger is represented from 1933 to 1963, and the Times Argus picks up in 1964 and goes into the 2000s. As for the Greenville Leader, now the Leader News, we have a complete collection from 1934 through the end of 2021 if you count both microfilm and digital issues. We also have a few copies of other newspapers that refer to significant events, like those we referenced earlier. Of course, our newspaper collection is only a small part of our Thistle Cottage archives, but it is significant in its scope and in its importance to local researchers. We get a lot of requests from people hoping to find old newspaper photos and articles, and we're proud to be able to provide access to that information. If you would like to check out our collection, please give us a call. Our archives are now open by appointment. If there's something you want to look up, we're happy to schedule a time for you to stop in and browse the materials we have to offer. Thank you for joining me again this morning for our Throwback Thursday video. I look forward to seeing you at Thistle Cottage soon. Have a great week!